Hello everybody, welcome to Chop and Brew. I am Chip Walton. This is not an official episode of Chop and Brew. That's why I'm calling it episode 5.5. The reason being, real life got a little too real. And between work and the final stages of a final paper for a graduate class that I'm in, I just could not get to any of the footage of the 3 episodes that I've got shot and sitting in the computer. I couldn't get it as well polished and well produced as I hope you know from me at this point in time that I demand from Chop and Brew or any video projects I work on. So I didn't want to fake the funk on any good footage and put something bad out. So instead I'm going to fake the funk on a solo chat at the table real quick and just tell you about some stuff coming up. I do apologize, but we will get back on track in a couple of weeks. Got a lot of good stuff coming up. What I would like to say, in the immediate future, on Monday, April 29th, I will be on the Brewing Network's Monday session. BN, Army, whoa, my networks. Man, this is going to be a good time. I haven't really had much communication with the BN Army since we shot a Brewing TV there a couple years ago and then seeing them at NHC last summer. So I'm looking really forward to that. I think Paynes is going to come along for that ride on that conference call. So Brewing Network, Monday session, 6:45 Pacific, 8:45 Central. Speaking of Brewing Network, I got to meet up with Sean Paxton this week in the Twin Cities. Again, haven't seen homeboy, super tall homeboy, since being in Pacheco, California a couple years ago. And it was awesome to see him. He did a presentation for the Better Beer Society University here in the Twin Cities called Cooking with Beer, and it was absolutely mind-blowing. Not only were we all salivating by the end of this hour-long presentation, but you could tell the crowd was having their brain thoroughly cracked open with the knowledge that he was spitting. So we're lucky enough to have that on videotape, and he's allowed us. We're going to put the whole presentation out as an episode, and it is solid. You'll be watching that episode with a notebook, and it'll just end up being a great to-do list for you as far as cooking with and for beer. Speaking of beer, this is the Orojo. In episode 5, if you followed the breadcrumbs to the lanyap about the Bama Dynasty and the Orojo, you saw me beating up on this beer pretty bad. Turns out once it got carbed, which a lot of you suggested, just carb it, man, don't dump it yet. I carbed it. It's actually pretty nice. The spice is still really high, but that weird banana flavor has been cut between the carbonation and actually getting it a little bit cooler as well. I feel like the bitterness is much higher. I can't even remember what hops went into that. I know the flame outs were like German Perla, but it's actually really drinkable, and I think it's gonna be good to cook with because of the spice. So I still think I'm gonna take Brian Adams up on his suggestion to do something with a ham. But for now, what's wrong with the beer we got? It drank pretty good. Speaking of lagniappes, while we're on this very short hiatus, while I finish my real life stuff, go back and check out some lagniappes. Man, me and Brian Adams drinking an 18-month-old Burton Ale that he and I brewed that was actually really good. That's the first lagniappe in Chop and Brew history. It's actually shot an SD crappy camera. Me, Mike, and Jake, and Dono kind of all doing various tasting notes. So check out our lagniappes. Speaking of watching other things while we're on a little break here, other resources I want to point out. Michael Dawson has thebeerengineblog.com. You know Mike style, complete homebrew, tech nerd, excellent stuff. So go check that out. Jake Keeler's got the 20 Acre Carcass blog. I believe it's just 20acrecarcass.com. You know Jake style. It's a little more about how does the beer interact with his other interest in life, his art, his fly fishing. If you love those two dudes, you're gonna love that. Then my homegirl, Gwen Stewart, she's got this blog called Gwen in the Kitchen, and she loves to bake, she loves to cook, She loves her cocktails. She loves her mixology. She home smokes malts for her own beer and graph. And one thing that she's really interested in that we're going to do an episode on is a ginger cake. And then at the end of it, I believe you put stout over it and let it kind of seep into that cake. So I've got a cherry stout that I'm going to offer for that project. And then her husband Vaughn made a nursing stout, which is apparently a low alcohol oatmeal sweet milk stout, I think, that was actually for nursing mothers and post-pregnant breastfeeding mothers back in the day. So we're going to make some ginger stout cake. GwenInTheKitchen.com, check that out. And then one thing I have to tell you, if you're missing your homebrew nerd, there's a Redditor. His name or his handle, his pseudonym, anonymous handle is Drinkin' Alone. And I'm going to link this under this episode as well as everything I just mentioned. But he compiled these 2 super lists of everything homebrew, beer nerd, beer science. I mean, there's a lot. So it's YouTube channels, it's blogs, it's websites. I'm going to link those. You go check that out and hang out on those lists for a little while and bookmark a lot of those. So big ups to Redditor, Drinkin' Alone for hooking that up, Reddit in general for the love of chop and brew, home brewing, and cat pictures, kittens on cake day. You know what I'm talking about. Another thing, please check out Summit. I work at Summit. I'm not, going to be fully transparent about that because I'm extremely proud of where I work in my job. Elsa and I both work there. Completely humble bunch of people, down to earth. Got a lot of good things coming up on the horizon. Just interesting place to work. I am very proud of the work I do for Summit, just as I am with Chop and Brew. I put as much thought, creativity, love, and into it. So check out youtube.com/Summit Brewing Company. There's a really badass video that I just put out this week with our head brewer, Damian McCann, about the Pilsner that we do. It's an award-winning Pilsner. The decoction process in that was just bonkers. Like, I've never seen a decoction on a commercial full-size scale. It was absolutely nuts. So please check that out. If you like what I do in general, you're going to like what I'm doing there, and you're going to like what Summit's doing in general. Again, the response to episode 5, overwhelming. Thank you so much. That was a great episode. We actually bottled up the Naz and the Golden Sunlight to send to the Brewing Network. So next Monday when we're on Brewing Network, they've got 2 bombers of each of those beers. So when Chris and I are here, we'll be able to drink along with them, except the Naz, which the keg kicked on the next glass I poured after filling their bottles. So Brewing Network officially has the last 2 bottles that exist of the Naz. What a waste. The response to episode 5 was awesome. The response to the Lanyap, where we're beating up on those beers, was actually awesome. As homebrewers, we should never act like all of our product is infallible. You're gonna mess up a batch. Experiments don't always go right. Don't feel bad about that. Like Chris Paynes said in that episode, man, just sometimes you gotta dump it, or at least keg it and see if it changes. Or maybe we'll throw some sour bugs in. If this hadn't worked out, I would have figured out a way to degas it, put some Rose de Lair in it, and make it kind of Flanders-y. Speaking of Chris Paynes, I feel like Chris Paynes was the MVP of episode 5. Do y'all agree? I think he has carved a niche as our new go-to tech nerd. Chris Paynes, bigs up. So I think that's about it, man. I brought these books that I was going to kind of explain, but I think we'll wait till future episodes. I was going to promote these, but let's just wait until we're actually using them. I will tell you that after this stack of books has returned to the library and I've moved on from my grad class, we've got a lot of stuff to get to. A lot of cool stuff. So I'm going to wrap this up. A dude sitting at a table all by himself at midnight, staring down a crazy deadline for grad class is no fun for anybody to watch. So I'm going to sit here and drink my O Rojo and contemplate. And I also want to say big shout outs to Boston, man. Boston strong. Before, I was a homebrew videographer for Northern Brewer, Brewing TV, and now Chop and Brew and Summit. I was a news hound for 10 years, and I have news hound still running through me. And when something huge and nationally significant like that happens, it really kind of kicks in that news hound mode, and it's just impossible to get enough information quick enough and that kind of thing. So the last couple of weeks, I know for the people actually going through it, have been horrible. For all of us vicariously wishing the best for you, it's also been intense. So I just want to say, Boston, big ups. I am impressed by the way that you came to the rescue for your people. I'm impressed by the way that it all went down, the speed with which it resolved itself as much as it could be resolved and as quickly. So man, I'm not trying to get into politics, but I do want to say what's up to Boston. Boston strong. So until the next time when we actually do chop and or brew, I want to say chop for chop, brew for brew. Stay with me, man. Promise you. We'll get back on track. I just can't help it, man. My standards are too high. I'm not gonna put no crap on tap. All right, I ain't got time for a blooper reel. No crap on tap, except that.